guys, welcome back for episode number 119 of the weekly playback. So some housekeeping as usual. Today my front ring light is not working, and about 2 or so weeks ago I discovered that my remote for my phone is not working, so that I can just hit a button and start recording and stop recording, and I should have gotten that replaced. Maybe it needs a new battery, or maybe the whole thing needs to be replaced. I don't know. I'm gonna go buy a new battery later today and then buy a replacement just in case, because today is Sunday and I was supposed to shoot an overview video today for one of the games which I'll be discussing, because that game is launching on Kickstarter on Tuesday. And then I realized that I can't do that without a working remote. I can shoot a weekly playback without a working remote, like that's not such a big deal, but shooting overview videos without a remote would be, I can't talk today, without a remote would be really difficult, because like I'd have to set the timer and then get back to my seat, and then yeah, it would just be too much, and it would be just me getting up and going back and forth like countless times until I get a take that I like. So yeah, so that's not happening, so I need to get my remote fixed. And then wake up really early tomorrow and shoot my video before I start the work day. So yeah, fun stuff. Oh, and I took a really bad fall the other day and hurt my shoulder really badly, but that's nothing new. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that I fall a lot. So I'm very accident prone, and I accidentally slammed my thumb in a door today. So it's a little bit bruised just below the nail and it hurts, but I think it'll be fine because that happens now and then as well. And I hit my head really hard yesterday as well. But again, these things happen all the time to me because I am very accident prone, so I just need to stop being so accident prone though. But yeah, so yeah, I guess we can just get started then. Okay. Let's talk about Lords of Heaven. This game will be releasing in 2026. It is for 2 to 4 players. It is designed by Alexander Jagodziewski, and the art is also done by him and is published by Phalanx Games. And this will be hitting Kickstarter on August 27th. So I played a 4-player game of this, and this is a this is a historical game. So you are vying for control of Jerusalem and the supremacy of the Middle East as one of 4 major powers of the medieval world. So you will be playing either as the Latin Christian Crusaders, which would be or the Orthodox Christian Byzantine Empire, or the Shia Fatimid Caliphate, or the Sunni Seljuks. So this is an area control and card placement game. So there's going to be area majority. There's going to be like auction bidding. So we'll go over how it plays and all the different kinds of mechanics that you'll see coming up in here. It's also a little bit of a semi-cooperative game. It doesn't have to be, but it is to a certain extent, because you are going to be forming alliances. So I'll just show you, I'll just put up pictures actually, because the board is quite big. So look at the pictures to see the board, but I'll just, maybe I'll just show you a little bit of the board. But on this big board, you're going to see different areas. I'll just show you half of it. So you're going to see different areas where you'll be placing city cards, region cards, and I'll show you what those look like. And those are the different areas of the board that you will be vying for control of. So I will just show you some examples. So depending on player count, you'll be using one side or the other. So in a 4-player game, we use this side. So this represents the city, and this represents like the outer parts of the city, and you'll be placing different kinds of tokens in different areas depending on what actions you are taking. So each person is going to have their own faction board. So I'll just show you the different faction boards. And do keep in mind that this is a prototype, so you know things are subject to change, and of course it'll probably be much nicer when it is actually produced. So here you are going to end up, sorry, it goes this way actually. So you're going to have various tokens here, here, and here, and you'll be bumping up those tokens as you start placing out various things. You are going to have buildings, fortresses, and citadels. Citadels are neutral in color, but your own buildings and fortresses will be of your own color, and I'll show you some examples. So you'll be bumping up your tokens as you start placing out more and more things. So each person has a faction board that looks like that. Okay, so So those are the faction boards for the 4 different factions. And in addition to that, each person is going to have 1 bluff card in their hand. Because when you are doing battles or sieges, you will be revealing a card. And if you just do not want to give up a card and that you have in your hand for a battle or a siege, and we will get into all of that, you will have a bluff card that you can just use instead and reveal your bluff card instead. So each person will have a bluff card of their own faction. The round deck, so the round, you are definitely going to have 5 rounds, and then after that it remains to be seen. So the game takes place over 2 phases. You have the first Crusades and then the second Crusades. So each Crusades will have at least 5 rounds. So you are going to reveal a round card for each round. So you'll have, for example, so the first round, you'll have round card 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5. And then after that, it remains to be seen how many rounds you have. So you're going to shuffle the round X, round Y, and last round cards. And you're going to shuffle those and place them at the bottom of these. And then so determining, you know, so then when you reveal the next card, it could be the last round or it might not be. So you don't know if you're going to have 1, 2, or 3 rounds after round 5. That remains to be seen. You just do not know. And finally, I will show you some of the action cards that you will be playing with. So there is a whole stack of action cards, and you will see various kinds of information on them. So some of them will be good for you if you are Christian, so either Byzantine or whatever the other faction was. What's the other one called? The Latin Crusaders. Yes, so depending on whether you are Byzantine or the Latin Crusaders, this card would be good for either faction. However, this one would be best for just the Byzantine, as indicated by the icon. Similarly, you will have some cards which are good for either of the Islamic empires, as indicated by both the yellow and green, or for one or the other. So for example, here is, let me find a card that would be good for just one. So here is a card that would be good just for the Shia Fatimid Caliphate, because it's just all yellow. And then you have cards which could be good for any of the 4 factions, as indicated by this icon. You're going to see different banners here, and I'll explain how those work and some other actions and bits of information. So depending on how you play the card, that, you know, will come into play. So each person is going to start, you're going to draft cards at the beginning of the round. So, you know, you will start with a hand, I believe, of 4 cards plus your bluff card, if I remember correctly. Or maybe it's 3 cards plus your bluff card, one or the other. And then you will begin playing. So the way the game goes is each person is going to take an action, and depending on the action you take, you might be able to start a siege or a battle as well. So there's the various kinds of actions you can do. So the various kinds of actions are, so let me just go over them because, okay, so there's development. So on the on the board, you're going to be putting down your cards to indicate which actions you want to take. So you will be putting down your cards on the main board. So at the bottom of the board, you will see that area where the cards get placed. And again, I'll post pictures because this is too big to keep on opening up and showing you guys. So if you are playing a development action, you will put down a card in the development spot and then pay any cost if you have any cost. So when you are playing a development action, you're going to be looking at the bottom ribbon. And if there is a coin cost, you will pay that cost. And then you will be able to do the development action, which is to place a building in an area where so you can place churches and mosques in regions, you can place fortresses between locations, and citadels in cities. So you have to meet certain requirements before you can place one of those buildings. So for churches and mosques, you can only place them if you already have presence, or not presence, units in the region, so flag tokens. So each person is going to have a variety of tokens. So I guess I should show those to you before we continue. So, and I did have to improvise and not improvise, but I had to create some of my own homemade tokens because my prototype was missing a bunch of tokens. But you're going to have a bunch of these. So each person will have 10 of these. And on one side is a crown, which indicates presence, and that will be placed into the city. And the flags, if you just flip it over, will be placed into the fields. So The presence is the crown, and the flags indicate like your own units, or I don't know the official term for it. I can't remember. It'll come up in a minute. So yeah, so those are those. And then, for example, here is a mosque. So each person is going to have either 3 mosques or churches, depending on which faction you are playing as. And then here is a fortress in your own player color. And then finally, each player will have 3 neutral colored citadels that they can place out. So if you have flags in the region, you can then place churches and mosques, only if you have at least 1 flag in the region. Fortresses can be placed only if you have a flag or a crown, so presence, in a location adjacent to the designated place for a fortress. Citadels can be placed only if you control a city. How do you control a city? You're going to need your presence marker in the last column, and then you would take the control marker. And the control marker will be, given to whoever controls the city. So if you lose control of it, you're going to lose the control marker, and it'll go to the person who now has control of it. So the control marker, just so you know what that looks like, and again, all prototype, but here is the control marker, and these are worth victory points. So they're going to be worth victory points at the end of the first Crusades and then at the end of the second Crusades. So that means you control. And if you build a citadels will be placed right above the highest city area, so here. And if you build a mosque or a church, that would be placed out here in the field. But when you go into a city to gain presence and you place a crown, you would probably start by placing it here unless you have a lot of money, and then you would pay the difference between 1 and 2 to advance to this level, and then between 2 and 5 to get to the highest level and gain control of that city. So that's how each region basically operates. So development is when you build a mosque or a church or a fortress or a citadel. So that is the development action. So you're going to play a card into the development area on the main board and then pay any cost here. And then if this card faction matches your actual faction, you also additionally get to do this action in the center over here. This part is ignored. That only comes into play for battles and sieges. So again, if your faction matches you, then you will get to do this bonus action as well. Now the cards are going to stack up on top of each other. So if someone else then chooses the development action, they would now have to pay 2 coins because this card has a coin on it and this card has a coin on it. So you're going to be stacking up cards on each slot on the main board as you take those actions. Another action you can do is presence. You can play a card in the same manner as you would for the development action. So you would get to perform presence action by placing a flag and a crown in locations. So you may place a crown in any city level adjacent to a location that already has your crown at the start of your turn. So you will begin the game by placing your crowns and flags in various areas of the board as indicated in the rules. So each person will start with a crown and a flag somewhere on the board. You can increase the level of your crown in a city where you already have that crown by paying the difference, as we already discussed. And if you want to place a crown or increase a crown and your opponent's crown is there, you would decrease their crown. So this is how you end up gaining control. So again, if you go to the rightmost level of the city, then you get control of that city and you would get to have the control marker. There can only be 1 crown of each player in a city. And there can only be 1 crown of each level on a city. And by city, we are talking about the bars. So you can have other players' crowns, just not in the same column as you. Okay, so that is the presence action, and also within the presence action, by placing a card in the presence area on the board, you can also do supports. That's what the flags are called. They're called supports. So you can place support in a region where you have a crown in the city in the same location, and you do have to pay 1 gold for each support you are placing there. And you can have any number of supports you want in a region. So that is the presence action. Another action you can do, and again, you will have to pay in order to do the presence. So again, if someone's card is already there and you add a card that also requires a coin, you will pay that in order to do that action. So you're always going to pay any cost first. And again, if your faction matches the card, then you also get to do the action indicated on the center of the card. Another action you can do is movement. So again, you're going to play a card onto the movement section of the board and pay any costs as indicated. So, okay, so with this one, you can move any number of your supports from one location to any other location, but you will have to pay 1 coin for any support you move into an adjacent area. So in addition to paying for the cost of taking the action, you will also need to pay coins in order to move your supports. Why do you want to move your supports? Because when it comes to sieges and battles, having supports is really important. So again, that is the support action, and as usual, if your faction icon matches your faction, if the card icon faction matches your faction, then you get to also do the center action. And then another action you can do is income. So when you do income, you will place a card and you will collect everything that is indicated on the top banner. So if other players had placed income cards or cards to collect income, you would also get to collect what is indicated there. However, when you place a new card, you cover up the bottom half of the banner. So if you have, like, for example, 2 icons on the top banner and you placed a card, you would get to collect 2 coins and this support knight person unit, and I'll go over the various units that you'll be getting and stuff, the tokens. But if you were, like, for example, if this card was already there and you placed this, you would not get to collect that unit because it would be covered up. So instead you would get 2 coins, and you'll also get income based on various presence markers that you have in cities. So if I had a presence marker here, I would get 2 coins for that. So you would look in every single city where you have presence and collect income from those as well. And then finally, you would look at your own player board, and if you moved up the icon anytime you placed out a building, you would get income from those as well. So you see the little income symbol there, so you would collect what is underneath your cube depending on how many buildings and such you placed out. So you would get to collect income that way. And money is important, again, because in order to place out certain things and build and do other actions, you have cost to pay. So you do need money. Conflicts. So let's go into conflicts. So battle or siege. So depending on the crusade, you can start 1 conflict during the first crusade and 2 during the second crusade. So each player is limited to how many conflicts they can start. So a battle is a bigger conflict, whereas a siege, you're just trying to take over the city. So within a battle, you are going to have your own supports, and you need at least 1 of an opponent's support in order to start a battle. And then you can move up to 1 support from each adjacent location. And if they have any supports where your opponent has any supports in the region where the battle is conducted or adjacent locations, then you may ask that player to be your ally. So if there's an opponent who has supports in the same region against so let's suppose there's 3 factions in a region, you can ask one of those other factions against whom you are not starting the battle to be your ally. So your ally can move a maximum of 1 support from each adjacent location. The defender can move a maximum of 1 support from each adjacent location, and so on. And then you will basically, each person is going to get to reveal a card. So they will secretly select a card from their hand, which will add to their strength. So at the bottom of these cards, you will see how much strength you are adding. So for example, this one is adding 2 swords, but +1 if you are the attacker. So you will secretly put down a card, and then secretly you will get to add in any units or faith that you collected throughout the game. So throughout the game, you will be collecting different types of units that can help you in a battle. So faith is a token that looks like this, and all players will be collecting faith, so whether you are Christian or Muslim, and that will provide you with one sword. Faith stays hidden behind your player screen, so no one will ever know how much faith you have. So the only things that stay hidden behind your player screen are faith and money. Everything else is visible to everyone else. So how many other supporting units you have will be visible to other players. So units that you can acquire are these. So these are some units that you can acquire. So this one, as you can see, has both blue and orange on it, which means it can be used during either battles or sieges. However, this type of unit can only be used during battles, I believe. So if I remember correctly, the orange is the battle one, but let me just double check. Yes, I believe orange is just battle. But let me just double check. So these are called knight markers. So as you can see, it has the knight symbol on it. So these are knights. And then you also, yes, so those are used during battles. And then there are also siege tower markers, which can only be used during sieges. So these, which you will also be collecting throughout the game, will contribute 2 swords, so 2 strengths, and those can only be used during sieges. So if a unit has both orange and blue on it, it can be used during either a siege or a battle. If it's only orange, like the knight, which provides 3 swords, that can only be used during battle. And if it's only blue, like these siege tokens, they can only be used during sieges. So again, those were visible in front of your screen. So every player is going to take all of their units behind their screen, decide how many of them they want to use during the siege or battle. In this case, we're talking about battles. So then they would secretly put them into their fist, and then everyone is going to reveal what they have at the same time. So that includes the attacker, the defender, and any ally of the attacker. So then you will reveal what you have. And then depending on who has the most swords, but in addition to swords, you also will be rolling some dice. So these dice you will be rolling depending on the number of supports you have in each location. And these dice have a maximum of 2 swords on them, and they also have wounds. So you will be wounding your opponents. So yes. So again, a maximum of 2 swords. So one side has 2 swords and one side has 1 sword and a wound, and all the others are just wounds. So there are a multiple of those dice. So after everyone reveals their hand, you count up the swords, and then you also get to roll dice and count those as well. And if you removed certain things from your player board, you might get to re-roll. So for example, if you had placed out all 3 of your buildings, your churches or mosque, you would be allowed up to 3 re-rolls of those dice. Then you determine the winners. So, and then you, count up who has the most swords and see whether the attacker won or not. You assign wounds to each player, and so you might end up losing your units, supporting units as a result, and so on. So any units that were not removed by wounds can be bought back with 1 coin per unit. And victory points. So all players who were involved in a battle gain 1 victory point. The ally of the winner gains 1 extra victory point, and the winner gains 2 extra victory points. So that is how a battle essentially goes. There are some little minute details which I skipped over. A siege is generally the same way, except in a siege, you are trying to take control of the city over here, okay? So you're not really worried about flags and a person's supports. You're just really trying to take over the city. So in a siege, you must have at least 1 of your flags in a region with any opponent's crown in a city in the same location. You conduct a siege against a player with the crown on the highest level among all other crowns in the city. You cannot move supports from adjacent locations, meaning flags. You can ask for an ally only if that player has at least 1 flag in the region where the siege is conducted. Your ally cannot move supports from adjacent locations. The defender can only ask for an ally if a player has a flag in the region where the siege is conducted. and they can't move any supports from adjacent locations either. Then you're gonna follow all the same steps as you would in a battle. And then, so again, you each pick a card, you get to, pick your units and take how many, decide how many you want to use and then reveal them and so on, roll dice and, inflict wounds and so on. So then it says all players involved in the siege gain 1 victory point. If the defender is the winner, they move their crown 1 level up. And if they already control the city, the defender gains 1 extra victory point. If the attacker is the winner, they get to choose one of the following options. They move their crown from the city. The citadel is not removed, and the winner places the defender removes their crown from the city, and the winner places their crown on the top spot and gain control of the city. Or the winner removes all players' crowns from the city, including their own if they have one, and the citadel is removed and placed in the general supply, and they gain gold equal to the number of each. To the number next to each wound icon or something like that, it says. Yeah, so they would get gold basically. So when you're conducting a siege, you either gain control of the city or you can get gold. So that's what a siege is. So in a battle, you're trying to really inflict wounds on someone and get rid of their supports and make it easier for you to build up in that city and hopefully also gain control of that city. But a siege is like a quicker way to try to gain control of a city. So that is how the siege works. So those are essentially all the actions. And you can initiate a battle or a siege when you do the support, when you do, I believe, the movement action. So it's indicated here. So yes. So if you do the movement action, which is where you move any number of supports, you can start a battle or a siege. And again, depending on which crusades you're in, the first or the second, that determines how many conflicts you are allowed to start. So anytime you play a card on your turn, you get to draw a new card. And if you are involved in a battle or a siege, you since you used a card to do that, you also get to draw a card back into your hand as a result. So basically, you're just going around and around, taking turns in each round so each person will take 1 turn in a round, and then you have the next round and so on in 1 crusades until you reach the last round. You complete that round, and then you do scoring at the end of that crusades. So at the end of 1 crusade, you will do scoring. So what will you score for? So let me just go to that so you can find out how you get points. So at the end of the first crusade, you will get 1 victory point for each city control marker you have. You do not discard them. You will keep them into crusades, the second crusades. You will remove all played action cards from action columns and place them in the discard pile. So that way, the cost to start performing actions in the second crusades will be less than it was by the end of the first crusades, because those costs really do add up. You will place 2 new locations onto the board. So you're going to place Damascus and Aleppo, and they'll have city control markers on them, so people can try to gain control of these 2 new cities, which have now appeared in the second crusades. And each player draws 2 action cards and then places the other 2 action cards on the bottom of the draw deck. So, you'll basically draw 2 action cards and then decide which of the 2 you want to discard from your hand and so on. And then you start the second crusade. So again, the second crusades, you'll also have a minimum of 5 rounds, and then after that, maybe up to 3 more rounds. And then at the end of the second crusades, you will gain 1 victory point for each city control marker you have. You will gain 1 victory point for 3 of your churches, mosques on the board. So churches or mosques, depending on what you are. You will gain 1 victory point for 3 of your fortresses on the board. And then you will gain 1 victory point for 3 of your citadels on the board. And then whoever has the most points will win. So this is a very low scoring game. At the end of the game, you're not going to have points that are in the 30s or something like that. I mean, I think the score tracker around the board only goes up to 20 something. And I don't think anyone even exceeded 15 points in the game we played, because it's not a high scoring game. And it's not necessary that everyone is going to start a siege or a battle. In one of the crusades, I know I started a siege. I think another player started a siege, and maybe there was a couple battles, but not everyone used their ability to start a conflict in the First Crusades. I think only 2 or 3 of us did in the First Crusades, and then in the Second Crusades you have the ability to start 2 conflicts, and I don't think, again, everyone used their 2 conflicts that they were allotted. So you're not always going to have conflicts. It's, you know, depending on whether players want to do conflicts or not. But of course you do need to do conflicts in order to try to get points in this game. Because, you know, you want to gain control of cities and you want to get those points by starting conflicts, battles, or sieges. So essentially that is the game. So I know it's, you know, maybe not the most detailed explanation, but it gives you a basic overview of how this game plays. So I enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed the card play. I think it was really a lot of fun. Of course, there is an element of luck, right? So the cards with your own faction on them are going to be better for you. So in the Second Crusades, I was really suffering by getting cards that were meant for Christians. I was playing as the Fatimid Caliphate, and like almost every single card I had was meant for the Christians, either the Byzantines or the Crusaders. So they were really not good for me, and I was really struggling as a result in the Second Crusades. There were a couple turns in the Second Crusades where I had to do income like twice in a row in order to really get more money that I needed, because the costs and the columns were really stacking up in the Second Crusades. Like, people were really wanting to increase their presence and do movement in order to move their supports from one region to another in order to gear up for, you know, battles and such. So again, I was really struggling without money, so I needed to spend a couple turns just to get a lot of income. So income is something you're also going to pay attention to. But overall, I really enjoyed this game. You know, this is a prototype, so it is hitting Kickstarter on August 27th, but I do think that there is still room for some clarifications on some of the cards. Like, we did have questions that came up throughout the game that were not answered in the rule book. So hopefully those will be cleared up by the time that the final production copy, you know, by the time that this goes to the printer. I'm assuming, just like their previous games, they are going to be working on it and refining it before they send it to the printer. So there were instances where we didn't know what we were supposed to do because the answer was not in the rule book. And some cards were not very clear. Like, so there was a card which I thought was really strange because it allowed one person to gain something for every fortress that was adjacent to a certain region, even if it wasn't their fortress. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. So let me find it. So because some of the cards specify your fortress, but this one card that someone played did not specify that it was their fortress that they would get to gain rewards for. And it was my fortresses that were surrounding this one city, completely surrounding it, and the other person was able to gain rewards based on that card that they played. So that made absolutely no sense to me. Oh yeah, here's one. So for example, local reinforcements. It says, choose a city with your crown and gain 1 unit for each adjacent fortress to that city. So it's like, why would someone else be able to collect, you know, units for fortresses of mine that are present? So that just seemed really bizarre to me. But here is the card. So, you know, I'm like, was that a mistake? Did they mean to say your fortresses, or I don't know. But maybe it's not a mistake. Maybe it means, like, you know, because opponents' fortresses are surrounding the city, maybe they're gaining units as a result. Maybe people are like coming to their cause and deciding that they want to fight the Muslims because, oh, there's all these Muslim fortresses surrounding them. Who knows? So, you know, I would like clarification. I'm sure that maybe it's probably correct, but, you know, I just thought it was a little bit weird when I was playing the game. But yeah, otherwise, I really enjoyed this game. You know, it might seem long when you're first starting, like, oh, wow, like, you know, each Crusades is a minimum of 5 rounds. But once you really get into it, it goes by really quickly. Like, the Second Crusades, I feel like, went by very quickly. By the time we really, like, had an idea of our strategies and what we wanted to do, I feel like the Second Crusades just flew by and it was over before we knew it. And in the Second Crusades, we had the 5 rounds plus 2 additional rounds. Yeah, What else can I say about this game? Yeah, the allies. So I was playing as the Fatimid Caliphate. One of my friends was playing as the Seljuks, and then we had two other players, of course, as the Byzantines and the Crusaders. So based on the setup of the game, you all start with your presence and supports in different areas of the board. So when the Crusaders and the Byzantines were busy always attacking me and like starting sieges and battles, because I get to start out in Jerusalem, and Jerusalem is an important city and I wanted to maintain control of it, but the Seljuks start all the way at the top of the board. So like I did not have allies because the Crusaders and the Byzantines kept on allying together and leaving me to suffer. So that was a bit annoying. I never got to perform a siege or a battle with any allies. And I don't know if it's designed that way in order to kind of represent history a bit more. I don't know. But I thought that was interesting. I do wonder if they've had if the person who designed this had a consultant on this game, and whether it is historically accurate or not in the way that the different units are situated on the board at the start of the game. I would be really curious about that. But yeah, I do think Jerusalem plays an important role. If I remember correctly, I think there was something special about Jerusalem, or not. Oh yeah, maybe not. Because at the end of the game, at the end of the Second Crusades, you're still just getting the points I mentioned before. There's nothing special about Jerusalem. I mean, in terms of this game. Jerusalem is special, as we can see from the news, but yes. So yeah, so that's pretty much the game. I think we all enjoyed it. We all just wish that the rules were a bit more clear on some things. And yeah, so really that's it. So it just needs some tweaking and refining, but otherwise a really great game. And someone sitting next to us at another table came over. Like we had a couple people come over and watch us as we were playing, and who were very curious about what this game was. And one of them was really curious and was like, I would really like to know what this game is. It sounds like it's just up my alley, and so on. So yeah, so if you're into historical games, area control games, games in which you're, forming alliances and so on, I think you would enjoy this game. And if you like card play games, like the card play in this game is really great. Like, just trying to decide which card you want to use. And again, paying attention to the icon in the corner and determining whether it's a card that you are willing to use for a battle or use for a certain action, so that you can get the central additional action when you play it if the icon matches your own faction. Like there's just a lot of decisions you'll be making in this game, which can be quite crucial. But again, there is a bit of luck involved in which cards you will be getting into your hand. At least with the First Crusades, there's a drafting involved. So with the First Crusades, at the beginning of the game, you're drafting, so you will hopefully start with some cards that are beneficial to you. But in the Second Crusades, not necessarily the case, because, once you start playing, it's just a blind draw when you need to replenish your hand. So yeah, but I really enjoyed it. And if you like historical games, then keep an eye out for this, and I will be doing an overview video for this, so you can keep an eye out for that as well. So yeah, so that was Lords of Heaven. So let's move on. Another game I played recently, which I do not own, is the Fox Experiment. So this is a 2023 game for 1 to 4 players, designed by Jeff Frazier and Elizabeth Hargrave. The art is done by Joe Shawcross, and it's published by Pandasaurus Games. Now this is a dice rolling game with drafting and other stuff going on. So in this game, you are basically, it's about an experimentation on domestication. So from a large group of foxes, you are selecting ones that so it says, from a large group of foxes, they selected the ones that reacted to humans with more curiosity and less aggression. So in each generation, they selected only the friendliest pups to become parents, hoping to recreate the process that originally led to domestication thousands of years ago. So in this game, that's basically what you are doing. So in this game, each person is going to have a board, and you'll have various things that you can upgrade on the board. But it's basically a dice rolling game, and you are trying to make various connections on these dice in order to mark off various traits on your pups. And then those pups will be able to hopefully spawn a new generation, and I'll explain how that works. So each person is going to have a player board, and I'll just post a picture here, and each person will start with one wild die. And then each person is going to have a stack of cards of pups, and you're shuffling those cards. You don't know which pup is going to come up, whether it's a boy or a girl, but really it's not like hugely important. And on that pup, you're going to be marking different things based on the parents you choose and what you end up rolling. So in turn order, you're going to pick either a parent, either a male or a female, or place your gear at the top of the board, which will indicate your turn in turn order for the next round. And as a result, you might get like a bonus of some kind, like an extra token, which you can use for something like an upgrade or whatever. So those, you'll basically get 3 turns per round. And if I remember correctly, this game is played over 5 rounds, I believe. So each person is going to take a turn selecting either a male or a female or placing their gear at the top of the main board. Once you have your male and female, and everyone has their male and female and has done any upgrades on their own personal board that they're able to do with certain tokens, so you have certain tokens which you'll be collecting, and I'll explain how that happens in a minute. So you're going to roll all of your dice, and then you're going to sequence your dice in such a way as you are able to, including your wild dice. So some dice are going to have half symbols on them, some are going to have whole symbols on them, some might have a whole and a half, some might be comprised of just 2 half symbols, and you can use your wild dice to fill in gaps and make whole symbols. Once you've decided how you want your sequence to be, you are going to take your pup card and with your marker, mark off the boxes in the various characteristics. So some characteristics will be like friendliness, some will be like, I don't know what the different characteristics actually are, like tail I think was something, ears was something, so just various different characteristics. So based on how you sequenced your dice, you will be marking off X's and dots. Each X you mark off will indicate a die that will be assigned to that pup once it becomes an adult, and I'll explain how that happens. Any dot that you fill in will be a token that you will get, which will allow you to make upgrades on your own board. So like, let's suppose I had a lot of purple dice because both the male and female adults I selected gave me a number of purple dice, and as a result I had a lot of purple symbols. So let's suppose I marked off 2 X's and 2 circles in the purple row on my pup. Once that pup becomes an adult, the X's on that pup would be the number of dice in that row that you would get of that color. So if there were 2 X's marked off on that pup in the purple column and 1 in the beige row, rather not column, that would mean you would get 2 purple dice and 1 beige die. So that's basically what the X's are. The circles that you get to fill in. So again, let's suppose I had 4 complete symbols of purple, which allowed me, because it's always every other, so it's a square, circle, and so on. So let's suppose I had 2 squares and 2 circles filled in. The 2 circles would mean that I would get 2 purple tokens, which I can then use for upgrades on my own player board. So your player board will show you how many matching tokens you need of a certain kind in order to get a certain upgrade. An upgrade might be a scientist card, a science card that you can use for some special ability throughout the game, and if you don't use it, it'll be worth 1 point at the end of the game. You might be able to get a patron and try to fulfill a public objective by having a patron. So there's various upgrades that you can get. You might be able to get additional wild dice, and the number of matching tokens you need in order to get upgrades will increase as you go along, and you have to go from left to right. You cannot jump over. And of course, at the very end, you will start getting points for your upgrades. So the more tokens you have of a certain kind, and the more you place in a certain row, then you'll start getting points towards the end of that row. So basically, once everyone has marked off their pup, you are going to see how many various characteristics you marked and place a number on the card. So like, let's suppose I filled in a total of 14 squares and circles. I would write 14 on my pup. Then whoever has the highest number will get to place their meeple on that round spot on the main board because they will get extra points at the end of the game for having the friendliest pup. So your number indicates how friendly your pup is, and whoever has the friendliest pup by having filled in the greatest number of things on their pup card will get, you know, a certain number of points at the end of the game based on where their meeple is. Everyone else who did not win the friendliest pup will get to take like a little token of some kind, and that token could be like a half wild symbol to help you fulfill a sequence in the next round, and so on. So that's basically how the game goes. So after everyone has filled their pup card, you can again make any upgrades on your board before you start the next round. And again, the next round will be selecting an adult and an adult male, adult female, and placing your gear at the top of the board, which will indicate turn order for the next round, and so on. All the pups you produced in one round will become adults in the subsequent round. So you can select the pup that you had created if someone else doesn't get it first. And that can be very helpful because in addition to, you know, just wanting to get points and friendliest pup and so on, each person has study cards. And on those study cards, you are trying to get from one level to the other in order to gain a maximum number of points. Each person will start the game with a study card, and you can acquire more throughout the game by upgrades on your personal board. So study cards, I find, are easier to complete by selecting your own pup again, who is now an adult, so that you can build off of that, because, you know, they will hopefully have the colored dice that you need in order to complete the next level of your study card, which will require more and more of a certain type of characteristic. That is essentially the game. So you're just rolling dice, trying to build up on what you've already done before and trying to get better and better pups, quite honestly, and complete your studies and get more points. So that's essentially the game. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun game. Is it one that I feel like I need in my collection? No. So I'm glad I got to play it because, you know, I don't think that it's a game that I would come back to time and time again. You know, if someone else brings it to a game night and wants to play it, I would be happy to play this maybe two more times, but I don't think it's a game I need in my collection. And yeah, but it was a fun little game that kind of has like a sciencey theme to it and is fun. And yeah, and it's got cute artwork with, you know, adorable foxes in it. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then you should check it out. So let's move on. Another game I played recently is a 4-player game of fairies and magical creatures. This is a 2023 game for 2 to 4 players, designed by Glenn Drover, and the art is done by Annie Stagg, and it's published by Forbidden Games, which was then bought out by University Games. So I played a 4-player game of this. The pictures I'll be using are not from my copy, so this is like the deluxe version, so you won't see necessarily all of the same components. Now, I covered this game for its Kickstarter when it was on Kickstarter, and so that was the first time I played it, which I played, I believe, at a 3 or 4 player count. And then I played this yesterday at a 4-player count. And I will say that I found the rulebook to be extremely frustrating. It needs so many clarifications. It seems like there's a lot of missing information in this rulebook, which made our play of the game very frustrating. And when I would go to Board Game Geek to try to find clarifications, like the designer or the publisher did not even respond to the rules questions. So people are coming up with their own conclusions about what the rules should be. And I find that to be extremely frustrating. I know that there is some kind of a lawsuit going on between Forbidden Games and University Games involving the sale of the company and so on, but that should not affect whether someone, clarifies things for a game. I would assume that if you designed a game, you would still want to see it succeed and hopefully provide clarifications on how to play that game. So anyway, so in this game, there's going to be one active player, starting player rather. So again, the rule book, not very clear. So some person is going to be starting the round and they are going to have this. So I'm going to go over how we play this game because again, the rule book was not very clear on things. So in one round, one person will have this and they will be the starting player of that round. They are going to take their pawn and place it onto one of the action spots of the main board. The different kinds of actions you can take are indicated up here. So you will place your pawn on an action spot. And these are different types of creatures, and I'll explain what those mean. And then each person is going to have a player board where they are building up a garden, and I'll explain all of that as I go over the actions. So the different actions you can take: gain trust. So if you place your pawn on the gain trust location, that means you will place one of your cubes, your trust cubes, in my case they're these gems, into one of the areas of the board here, because there is an area control aspect to this game going on as well. Whoever has 10 of their influence in a certain area first will get a home tile that matches that area. So for example, the first person who has 10 of their cubes in the Fae section will get the Fae home tile, and I'll explain what that means for you. So that is the gain trust action. Another action you can do is to build a garden. You can select a garden tile from offer, and there's always going to be tiles equal to the number of players plus 1, and place it onto your player board. You can place it path side up or garden side up. And I'll explain scoring a little bit later, but depending on how many points you want to score, you will choose one or the other. So then that's the build a garden action. Another action is to befriend a fairy. You can draft a new card from what's on offer. So there's again going to be cards equal to the number of players plus 1. Another action you can do is helping hand, where you actually play a card from your hand and do the action that's indicated on that card. And then finally, the last action you can do is call fairies. You can discard one card from your hand and then draw back up to a total of 5 cards from your draw pile. So what are you trying to do in this game? You are trying to get majorities in the various sections of this board so that you can collect these home tiles, and you are building up gardens. So as you are building up gardens, each garden piece you have on your board at the end of the game will score 1 for each square in that garden, as long as one of those pieces of that garden is connected to a path. And your path, your starting path, must be connected to one of the edges of the board, but then after that it can connect to another path or again the edge of the board. So you want every garden piece you have to be connected to a path somehow. So like this would be fine. Even though all the pieces are not connected to the path, you would be able to score all of the garden squares because at least one of them is connected to a path. So at the end of the game, you will get 1 point for each garden piece that is connected to a path. So you want all of your gardens connected to a path in some way. Every garden that is connected to a home tile that you got by being the first person to get 10 influence in one of those areas will be worth double. So like, let's suppose a garden tile is going to score 6 points, but it's connected to this, it'll score 12 points instead. So that's what these are for. So you want to try to get your majorities quickly in these various areas so that you can collect more of these in order to double the value of your gardens. So that's how that works. So let me just show you some of the different kinds of cards. So each person is going to start with some cards in hand. So for example, the cards that you begin the game with are Spider, Raven, Fox, and Frog. So here is an example of where the rulebook really sucks. Raven says, when drafting a new card, place it directly into your hand. There is no clarification in the rulebook about how this card is played. Like, do you play it at the same time when you're drafting a card or what? Like, so we had to make up rules for various cards as we went along, and I think that if you have to do that in a game, it's not a very good game. Like, the rulebook needed a lot of clarifications. So I'll show you some other examples of cards. So here's Puka. So Puka says score 1 victory point per path tile in your garden. So if you played this card, you would immediately get to do that. Oh, before I forget. So going back to how crappy the rulebook is. So when the active player places a pawn and takes that action, everyone else gets to take the same action. in fact, has to take the same action if they're able to. Then the next player in turn order places their pawn. And the rule book, yet again, does not specify whether you can place your pawn on the action and an action that had already been taken, or you have to select a new one. So we had to make up our own rules. So we decided that the next player has to select an action on which there is already not a pawn. So in a 4-player game, you're basically going to end up doing 4 of the actions out of the 5 available actions that you have. So in a 5-player game, you're going to end up doing all of the actions because, again, the rule book did not clarify. So again, the active player will be the first person to put down their pawn. Everyone will do that action after the active player does it. Then the next person will place down their pawn, and then everyone will do that action. And then the next player will place down their pawn, and everyone will do that action. After everyone has placed their pawns, we remove all the pawns. Then this gets passed to the next player in turn order, and you do it all over again until game end is triggered. So again, rulebook not clear about how that actually works, which is very frustrating. So let's go back to some of the cards and what their actions are. So here's one, like it says place 1 kinship token in any area or remove 2 from the nature area. So again, there's a whole variety of different kinds of cards, and it's not always clear how they are played or when they are played because the rulebook does not provide clarification. Here's another one, draw a random card from your discard pile. So, we spent way too much time trying to interpret various cards, trying to interpret various rules, and it was just really, really frustrating. Like, I cannot imagine anyone wanting to play this game again, which is such a shame because again, I played this game a long time ago when I covered it for its Kickstarter, so I think I was more forgiving of the game back then because I figured, like I do of a lot of prototypes, that the rules will be refined, and once it's produced, you will have a really good final edition of the rules in which you are not having to interpret a bunch of stuff on your own. Unfortunately, that was not the case here. Unfortunately, there is a lot that is left up to interpretation, and that is just very disappointing. So if you are looking for a game that is, really solid on the rules, would not recommend. But if you are looking for a game that has beautiful artwork, then sure, I would recommend this game. So I don't know what to do because I absolutely adore the artwork in this game, but I think it really needs a whole errata sheet. I think the designer needs to come out and clarify a bunch of things, but I don't know if it's the lawsuit that is preventing him from doing that. I don't know if I'm sure that there's a lot of emotions wrapped up with everything that's happening. So that was my play of fairies and magical creatures. So let's move on. So I will just go briefly over some other games that I played recently. So another game I played recently, which is one that I do own, is Meadow. And I absolutely love Meadow, so I was really happy to get to play it again. So I think I did an overview video for this, which was not sponsored. I just decided to do it on my own. So you can check that out if you want to see how it plays. But it is a really gorgeous drafting game in which you're just trying to get points based on how you place your cards into your own meadow. And there's also like a campfire in which you can place tokens around to maybe do a special ability. Like, I highly recommend this game. Like, playing it again yesterday, I played a 4-player game of it and absolutely loved it, and I'm so glad that I got to play it again because it was a game that I'd been wanting to play again for so long. The last time I played it was in 2021, which is when this game came out. So it was a 2021 game for 1 to 4 players, designed by Clemens Kaliki, and the art is done by Carolina Kajak and someone else. Who is the other person? Katarzyna Fibiger. Okay, I totally butchered that. And it's published by Rebel Studio. So yeah, absolutely stunning game. I'll just post a couple pictures here. So again, it's a card drafting game. The way in which you draft cards is really interesting because each person has a token, and you're going to be placing your tokens around the board and then counting in how many spaces, and that will indicate which card you can draft unless you use the other end of that token and place it around the campfire in order to do the special action which is indicated on that token. But if you do that, you cannot place a card into your meadow unless you use the special action which allows you to place 2 cards into your Meadow. But basically different cards have different requirements, so you're building up on different cards. So one card, for example, might require a bug, so you need that bug, and maybe it requires a certain terrain type, and then when you place a card you have to place it on top of one of its requirements in that column. So you'll always have like the bottom icon showing, and yeah, you have different terrain types, you have like mountains, you have forests and so on, and different animals and bugs and plants require different kinds of things. Just a really nice, pleasant card drafting, like tableau building kind of game. Highly recommend. So this is a game that I know I'll keep in my collection because I just absolutely really loved it. And then I played another game of Mezen, which I discussed last week, so you can go to last week's video to see how Mezen plays. But I really enjoyed my game of Mezen, and the other player I played with really enjoyed it as well. So I believe that those are all the games I played in the last week, so let's move on. So this section of the video will be really short because I'm actually have no active campaign, so I'm actually not backing anything right now, so nothing is active and I have not received anything new to show you guys. So yes, super short section, and I don't think I've bought anything. No, I think last week I showed you guys the one game I purchased recently, which was Newer Riders, and I think I showed you a couple of new arrivals then. So let's go on to the next section, which is games that I am culling. So we already had one winner of a giveaway for games that I'm culling, and I've got a stack of games here, but you know, I was talking to a friend recently, and I still need to ship the game that I'm going to be shipping to the person who won the last giveaway. But he did request he did ask me whether I was selling any games to see whether he can just throw in some extra games that he might be interested in buying. And then I got to talking with someone else. I decided based on a conversation I had with another friend that, you know, there's games that I'll be giving away, and then there's games that I will be selling, which I actually did receive as review copies as well. And the reason I came to this conclusion is because, number one, you know, playing games and then creating content for them does take time, right? So she felt it was fair that I be able to sell certain games since I did take the time to play them and then create content on them, like discuss them in my weekly playback. And yeah, I do, you know, this would allow me to maybe purchase more games that I will then be talking about. So I decided that I'm going to sell certain games and then give away certain games. So as determined before, I would definitely be selling games that I purchased myself. But in terms of review copies that I received, you know, I still need to kind of figure out what the determining factor will be for whether I'm selling a game or whether I'm going to just do a giveaway of it where one of you would win it and pay for the shipping. So I still need to kind of figure out all the rules and see what seems most fair. So that's something I'm still going to be refining. And another thing I think I want to do is, you know, as more and more people start entering giveaways for free games, but again, they're paying for the shipping, you know, I want to be fair and give everyone a chance to win a game. So if you previously won a game, like let's suppose in one giveaway, 5 people entered and one of them won a game. Let's suppose there's another giveaway. I would say, you know, feel free to enter again because maybe there's a chance that no one else wants that game. So you could win it again. You could win another giveaway. But like, let's suppose you enter and then there's people who enter that giveaway who have not previously won a game. I am going to then exclude your name if you already won a game. So I will be keeping a running list of who enters every giveaway. Yeah, I know that's a lot of work. And I will be keeping a running list of who wins so that I can keep an eye on whether someone has entered a giveaway multiple times but has not yet won, because I want it to be fair. And I want everyone, you know, I want everyone who supports my content to have a chance of winning something. So I am going to be keeping an eye on that as well. So just to keep things as fair as possible. So with all of that being said, let me just show you what's on the cull pile right now. And I'm only going to be giving one of these away this week, but I decided to pull out a bunch of games that I know I want to cull, and I'll only be giving away one of them in this week's giveaway, and then maybe in the future, actually a couple of these I paid for, so we'll see. So one game that I'm definitely going to be giving away, and if you want to win it, you can put down what your favorite color is in the comments below, but I am giving away my review copy of Color Field. Now, I know I gave this game a really bad review when I covered it on this channel, so maybe no one will want to win this. Maybe you guys will be like, why would we want to win a game that you absolutely hated and could not understand why it was published? Well, as I've said before, one person's trash is another person's treasure. So maybe someone else will want to win this. And the designer of this game seems really nice. Like, I don't know if he ever saw my segment on his game, but maybe he'll unfollow me on TikTok, but we do follow each other currently on TikTok, and he seems like a really nice guy. So maybe you just want to play his game and support him because he just seems like a really nice guy. Maybe that's a reason to want this game. But I absolutely did not like this game, and honestly, I could not understand why on earth it even got published. Like, I could not understand how this even got a publishing deal. Like, just made no sense to me. But again, maybe someone else will really love it. Like, there were content creators who gave this game a good review. So this is being given away. So if you want to win this game and pay for the shipping for it, but the game itself is free, all you need to do is pay for shipping, then leave a comment below by the end of Friday of what your favorite color is. So in this game, I'll just give you some details about it. So, but of course you should go on BGG and look it up yourself and see if you want to win it. So this is like a really nice production copy, and it's for 2 to 4 players. It plays in 20 to 45 minutes. And in this game, it says it's time to paint your masterpiece. Choose paint tiles to add to your canvas as you compose 3 beautiful abstract paintings in this game for 2 to 4 players. Match colors in the tiles to score points as you create these stunning works of art. Yeah, so if you want to win this game, leave a comment below telling me what your favorite color is by the end of Friday. And Friday, let me just see what the date is because I don't actually know. So leave a comment by the end of Friday, August 30th, letting me know what your favorite color is, and you might win this game. If no one enters, then I will be donating it to FlagCon. So yeah. So culling that. So that is up for a giveaway this week. Some other games I am culling. Some of these will be for sale, and some of them I might give away in future videos. So I'm culling Blazon. I don't even know if that's how it's pronounced. Another 25th century game. A beautiful production value, and this is the deluxe edition of Blazon. So this contains the absolutely gorgeous deluxe components, and let me just show you some of them because these are just stunning. Like, look at these stunning components, and there's a couple of these, and then it has really, and I actually sleeved this game, so that's another thing. Sleeves are expensive, so if I give away again a game, I'm gonna remove the sleeves so that I can use them for a future game because sleeves are expensive. Or maybe I did not sleeve them. Actually, never mind. I thought they were sleeved, but no, they're not sleeved. But yeah, but here is like one player board, for example. The rule book is really nice. It's like a nice linen finish. But yeah, just let me just show you the inside of the insert so that you can just kind of see what it looks like and see some of the components because they are just absolutely stunning. So yeah, so this is the deluxe version, and it comes with a really beautiful purple bag. Oh, this bag is just gorgeous. And what is in here? Oh yeah, just various kinds of ink pot tokens. So this game is a game of medieval heraldry. So you are like putting down shields or something like that. There's cards. I believe that there was one main board like this. So absolutely, I actually enjoyed this game. I just did not enjoy it enough to want to keep it, and I think play it again and again. So you know, again, this is not up for sale or a giveaway in this week's video, but maybe a video down the line. I haven't decided whether I would sell this or do a giveaway, but that is a game that I'm definitely culling just because I, you know, don't see myself playing it a lot. But maybe I'll play it one more time just so I can say I got like 2 plays out of it. So culling that. Oh, another game I played this week, which I totally forgot to talk about, is Brew. So this is a game I purchased in 2021, I believe. So I bought this myself, and the cards are sleeved. So let me just look it up. Now, I don't know if I bought this before I started creating my weekly series or after, but I do remember I bought it because I am blacklisted by Pandasaurus Games, so I get no review copies from them anymore. I have not gotten a review copy from them since like 2020. So if it's a Pandasaurus game, then you know I paid for it myself, unless it's a game that I received in 2020 before they blacklisted me for going to Universal Studios with Dumb Quackalope. So yeah, so I played this game again recently. I played a 2-player game of it last week. It's a shame I forgot to talk about it, but I'm not going to go into too much detail. But it's a nice little dice game, but based on, and I actually upgraded this by, you know, just getting a nice little box to store components in. I sleeved all the cards because I actually really love the artwork in this game, and it's got some really nice companions. The dice are just really cool. Like, I love all of the components so freaking much. Like, I love these dice. Like, just look at these gorgeous dice. Like, I absolutely love those. I love the various animal cards, like the companion cards. Where are those? Here. Because they're like holographic, just really, really nice. And again, I sleeved them. So yeah, and this game was back in 2021 when I was buying these really expensive sleeves. I can't remember what they're called now, but super expensive sleeves. So I'm going to be selling this since I paid for it myself. And yeah, so if you're interested in buying this, let me know. But yeah, I'm selling this because based on my recent play of it, the friend I played with had played this game shortly, like maybe a couple days or something like that before we played it. So that's why she suggested we play it, because she wanted to play it a second time and she knew that I had it. And in her second play of this game, which was my second play of it, though my first play of this was back in 2021, she just basically said that in this game, you know, there's only one path to winning, and that path to winning is really by claiming the various forest cards, the various terrain cards. If you are not placing dice up there, you are just not going to win. And she says that the game is kind of broken as a result. Like, you are not going to win this game by doing stuff on the main board or focusing on cards in which you can place dice in your own area. And yeah, and from what I kind of experienced in my play of this game recently, I could see that. Like, I could see what she means. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to keep a game in my collection in which, you know, there's only one path to victory. And once you figure that out, like, what is the fun? Like, you have no other strategies to really explore in the game. So as a result, I'm going to call this game and sell it. So if it's, you know, I'll probably figure out a way to list my games for sale so people who watch my content have like first dibs or something in buying a game. So let me know if you are interested in purchasing this. Another game that I'm selling is my deluxe edition of Brass Birmingham. So I finally decided that I will part ways with this game because I have a lot of credit card debt I need to pay off, and I don't ever see myself playing Brass Birmingham again. So I played with my copy a number of times. I purchased it myself. It is a Roxley Deluxe numbered edition, and I upgraded it. I spent a lot of money upgrading this game by buying special upgrades from Etsy, special component holders, and this comes with the nice iron clays. So I am selling my deluxe edition of Brass Birmingham, which was also signed by Martin Wallace. So yeah, so culling that from my collection. Another game I am culling is Aqua. So I purchased this a couple months ago, I think. Played it once. I heard a lot of amazing things about it, but I have games that play similarly to this, and I decided I have enough games that have like really pretty underwater artwork because I recently just got Aqua Garden. So, you know, I don't really feel a need to keep this in my collection, to be honest. So I'm gonna sell this. I paid for it, so I'm gonna sell it. So yeah, so those are all the games that I have stacked up to sell or give away now. So yeah, so those are the games that I'm culling. So there will be a lot more that will get added because things are out of control here. So yeah, so stay on the lookout for games that you might be interested in purchasing or winning on this channel. And if there is a game that I mentioned today that you would be interested in purchasing, do keep in mind that you would also be responsible for the shipping cost. So that's something to keep in mind. So, but if there is a game you're interested in purchasing and it's not something you want right away, maybe further down the line, I'll be selling something else that you want to purchase and we can just bundle your, you know, shipment and have you save money on shipping. But, you know, I would love to give my viewers first dibs on things that I am selling. So yeah. So again, if you are interested in winning Colorfield, leave a comment below by next Friday. well, coming Friday, by the coming Friday, of what your favorite color is. Okay, so yeah, so let's move on. And now time for updates. I guess we can talk about cons first. I cannot believe that like Spiel Essen is like a month away. Like that just blows my mind. I don't feel ready. Not that I really need to do anything to get ready for it. I mean, I'm going to be working for a publisher, but I do think I need to refine my list of which games I want to purchase, because again, I do not want to have a crap ton of games that I come back with like I did last year and have to drag them through the airport using that one game bag from All Play, which does not have wheels on it, which is why I backed the new edition with wheels, but it's not arriving in time for Spiel Essen. And I do not want my shoulder to suffer like it did last year, so I need to figure out what I really want to get and prioritize. And it's already going to be a struggle because I'm already picking up some games that I pre-ordered for Spiel Essen pickup, and a copy for my friend as well that he ordered. So yeah, so I already know I'm a little bit limited on space. I'm gonna try to figure out what to do about that, but I cannot believe that that's just like a month away. Like that is crazy. If I have any viewers in Copenhagen, I'm gonna be in Copenhagen for like 2 full days. I think 2 full days before Spiel Essen, because last year I had such a nightmare dealing with Airbnb and some issues I was having. I had saved 1 day for sightseeing in Cologne, Germany for the day after Spiel Essen, and because Airbnb really screwed me over, I spent my last day at Spiel Essen just crying, and I was just kind of like an emotional wreck my last day because of the Airbnb issue, and also because October 7th had happened and someone had basically simply just assumed that I support terrorism against innocent civilians, which I absolutely do not. So I was also crying about that because someone had texted me saying like, oh, I can't, talk to you anymore because you support, terrorism. And I was like, we didn't even have a single discussion about it, and you're just making assumptions about me while I'm at a convention in Germany, but okay. So I was kind of an emotional wreck the last day of Spiel Essen. And if you were there and you saw me, I was probably crying because I was crying most of the day on my last day of Spiel Essen last year. But yeah, I cannot believe like it's just a month away. Like that is crazy. FlagCon, if you haven't bought your tickets for FlagCon, definitely do that. I think I forgot to leave a link in the last video, so I'll do that in this video. So Ghost Cat. So cat update. So I have a very important update. I trapped Ghost Cat. I cannot believe it. Like, I still am in shock. It happened Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, and I still cannot believe I got Ghost Cat. And to celebrate, I bought this cool insulated tumbler from Home Goods. It was only $10, but it keeps your drink really cold for a long time because I'm obsessed with Halloween, and I was at Home Goods like a couple days following the trapping, and I saw this amazing Halloween tumbler, and it's a cat, a ghost cat. I was like, I need to get this, and it will remind me of all of the nights and the mornings I went there to try to get this cat and finally got. So yes, so Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, buying KFC paid off. I think I spent a total of $21 on Kentucky Fried Chicken and trying to trap this cat. And at a certain point, I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm just spending so much money on KFC, like trying to get this cat, getting my hands like really gross and stuff. Like every time I would like rip apart the chicken and leave it in the trap and like leave a trail into the trap. I was just like, it was just really gross. so yeah, but I finally got Ghost Cat. Like, I just cannot believe it. So it turns out Ghost Cat is a girl. The rescue organization, and I thought it was a boy based on how big this cat is. But it's a girl, and she, dropped her off with the rescue organization because once I trapped her, once I trapped her, the plan was to give her to the rescue organization, and they were going to take care of whether it was neutering or spaying, vaccinations, and then reunite the cat with the rest of the family. Because as you guys know, this cat is from a colony number 3, which was not like an official colony, and the plan was always to relocate all of these cats because they were in a not not safe location, and all of the cats except for this one were able to be trapped months ago and relocated to a barn. And I think I mentioned in a video or two ago that I had heard that some of the cats who had been relocated to the barn went missing. Well, it turns out they came back. So I actually got a report recently that they had sighted the cats again that had been relocated to that barn. So I guess maybe they just, you know, because these are very feral cats, so maybe they just have a wide area that they like to roam around in. But they did make a reappearance in the barn and ate some food. Like, we got some pictures from the person who owns this barn, who adopted these cats. So yeah, so that is really great news. So this cat is going to get spayed and vaccinated and then reunited with her family in the barn. So I am just super happy. I honestly cannot believe that I got her. Like, it took like, I don't know, 3 weeks. I can't remember how many weeks I had been doing this, but finally, I just cannot believe it. I'm still in shock. Like, it still hasn't sunk in. Like, I'm shooting this video on a Sunday and I got her Tuesday night into Wednesday morning when I went and checked the trap. And honestly, I still cannot believe that I got her. Like, so happy. So my perseverance paid off, because I know in the last video I was talking about maybe stopping after a while, but I'm so glad it paid off. So that's a lesson to you all, you know, just persevere, and hopefully you will accomplish what you are trying to accomplish. So yeah, so that is really just very good news. But yeah, just the skunks in colony number 2 really know me so well now. They're not even afraid of me. Like, I can be pretty close to them. Have not gotten sprayed yet. I think they, you know that I feed them, so they like me. So yeah, I've got, you know, like a little, you know, I'm building up a relationship with the skunks. Zaytoon's father in colony number 2 is getting closer and closer to me. I think I mentioned in the last video that he even came up to me and smelled my hands and everything, and now he comes by pretty close to me. And Zaytoon's mother too, like, she comes up pretty close to me now too. Like she'll like literally sit right next to me as I'm putting food onto the plate, like Girly used to do. Girly, the cat who went missing, who I hope got adopted by someone because she was very friendly. But now Zaytoon's mother, who is an orange cat, I believe it's his mother, but she comes up close by now and she'll meow and she'll sit there and watch me put food into the plate. None of them will actually start eating the food from the plate as I'm putting the food onto the plate like Girly used to do, but they will sit very closely and watch. And I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to petting them, which is pretty cool. So yeah, so I'm just really happy about that. Yeah, so I feel like the cat stuff is going really well. As I mentioned in the last video, someone thought that they saw a cat who was dead somewhere that looked like Girly. They never responded. I don't know, you know, what was up with that, but I don't think it was her, based on an earlier report of a dead cat who was nowhere near where this colony is. So yeah, so I just, you know, I don't know, but I think, I'm guessing Girly like maybe wandered off into some neighborhood, or someone who happened to be like an infrequent feeder of the colony or something like that, because there are some random people that I run into at times who are just like curious about the cats and stuff like that. So maybe someone adopted her because she was the friendliest cat in the colony. In any colony I've ever fed at, she was by far the friendliest cat. So who knows, maybe she got adopted. But yeah, I'm just so happy about Ghost Cat. So yeah, so I'm just really happy I had that good news to report. So yeah, so let's move on. So for our next fiction book, since Halloween is coming up and Sandra said she would be fine with any of the choices, I decided, why don't we read Never Whistle at Night, which is an anthology of Indigenous horror stories. Well, not necessarily horror, it says dark fiction anthology. So let's start reading this, and there are quite a few stories in here, so this will definitely take us through the end of October. So for next week, read the first 2 stories. The first 2 stories are, okay, I'm gonna butcher these names. Kushtuka, which is by Matilda Zeller, and White Hills by Rebecca Roanhorse. So read the first 2 stories of Never Whistle at Night for next week. But next week will actually be 2 weeks from now, because I actually can't shoot a video next weekend. So maybe we should read more than that. But, you know, okay, let's say the first 3 stories, since I'm not going to be shooting a video for 2 weeks. So also add in Navajos Don't Wear Elk Teeth. So yes, read the first 3 stories for next time, which is Kushtuka, whitetails and Navajos don't wear elk teeth. So those are the stories we will be reading for next time, and we can discuss all of the stories. And yeah, I think it would just be really fun leading up to Halloween. So yeah, this is Never Whistle at Night, edited by Shane Hawk and Theodore C. Van Alst Jr., in case you would like to buy this book or borrow it from your library and join in. So yeah, so super excited about this. So thank you, Sandra, for your feedback. I'm really excited for the next book that we will be reading. So let's move on. So for this week, we were supposed to read the second half of chapter 3, I believe it was, which is the third declaration of war. So we were supposed to start on page 118 and read to the end of the chapter. So this was a really interesting second half, I thought, because it really started to talk a lot about the Lebanese Civil War, which I'll be honest, I don't know too much about. So when I was in grad school for Middle Eastern Studies, I did study a little bit about Lebanon, but my main area of focus when I was in grad school was Iran. So I know a lot about Iran, and of course I studied Palestine a bit because of my own just personal interest in that, and I also studied Ottoman history. So I know quite a bit about Ottoman history as well, but I do not know too much about Lebanon, which I wish I did, because as a Shia Muslim, I know that there's a lot of Shias who live in Lebanon, and that, you know, I have personal interest in Lebanon for that reason, and I've always wanted to visit Beirut, which used to be called the Paris of the Middle East. But, you know, as we know right now, Israel is actually bombing Beirut and has been doing so since October. And of course, claiming that they are preemptive strikes. Like, who on earth, what other country on earth can get away with just bombing any nation it wants and claim that it's a preemptive strike? But as we've seen from this book already, Israel has been doing that for many, many, many years. Like they did that when we discussed how they started the war when there was no actual threat of war. Yeah. So this chapter, we learned a lot about the Lebanese Civil War and all these Arab countries that are like, you know, in it for their own interests, right? So let me see. So like you learn about Syria, you learn about Jordan, you learn about Lebanon, and how all these different nations, or Egypt, you know, they all have their own thing going on, their own interests, and that's basically the way of the world, right? Which makes me really like, what is the point of all of this? Like, I don't know, that's just getting really like too far removed from this, but maybe I can talk a little bit about, you know, that in the end. But anyway, you learn about Henry Kissinger, who was like, you know, one of the world's biggest assholes. So, you know, he shows up, and you learn a lot about his role in everything in terms of Palestine. And, you know, so it says here, during President Nixon's term, and then his national security advisor and later Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, so they wanted to expand their efforts to weaken the Soviet Union, right? So it says the centerpiece of this Cold War strategy was the American attempt to prize Egypt away from the USSR, align it with the US, and induce it to agree to a separate peace settlement with Israel. When this American-led initiative finally succeeded in the late 1970s under the Carter administration, it had the effect of splitting the nominally unified Arab front and leaving the Palestinians and other Arab actors to face Israel in a much weaker position. So, you know, you see a lot of just politics at play here because of the Cold War, with different people, different nations having their own agendas and trying to accomplish their own goals. And as a result, the Palestinians just kept on getting like screwed over time and time again. I feel like that's what we've seen in this chapter. Like when you learn about the Lebanese Civil War and how the US is covertly working with the PLO against their secret agreement that they had with Israel, and then in the end, the Palestinians, the PLO gets nothing for it. Like, how fucking infuriating was that? Like, I just was so angry. That is something that I didn't know about. So, you know, like a lot of this feels like it's new information to me. Even though I, you know, kind of read this book before, and I say kind of because I feel like I didn't retain a lot of it back then. So, but yeah, so it's just very, very infuriating. So I highlighted so much in here, but there's just a lot of stuff in here. Like, you know, it talks about how radical Arab states such as Syria, Iraq, and Libya continue to talk the big game where the Palestine cause was concerned, but their rhetoric was empty. So it says what these states actually did was to sabotage the PLO by sponsoring nihilistic terrorist groups such as the Abu Nidal organization, which assassinated numerous PLO leaders and killed 3 Israelis and Jews indiscriminately. Yeah. And then, of course, it talks about, you know, Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. And we know how crappy they are, especially when it comes to the Palestinians. Like, have no concern for the Palestinians. And when you learn about Camp David and how the Palestinians were just really left out, like, yet again, like, it's just infuriating. So let me just skip ahead to Camp David, actually, because I was just really angry at all of that. Yeah. But before we get to Camp David, I want to talk about the Lebanese Civil War and the massacres that occurred during the Civil War. Like, a lot of these names were already really familiar to me, like Sabra and Shatila. Like, I already knew about the massacres that happened there and the atrocities that happened, but you learn so much about all the various parties that are involved in this Lebanese Civil War and, you know, how it's the Palestinians and, of course, Lebanese people who really suffered as a result. Like, it's just so infuriating that people's personal goals, because in the end, I don't think anyone in power actually cares about its people. Like, they all, including in the US, I feel like people in power, whether that's the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, people in power, how much do they really care about the people of their country? I think if you look at a country like Denmark, maybe there they do, you know, which is supposedly the happiest country on earth. But then when you look at Denmark, you also realize that they are actually a very racist country and don't really want to welcome in other people who are not white and not Danish. So they really want to keep their resources and everything to themselves. But in a world where people are migrating, in a world where countries' leaders do impact other countries and cause refugees to be made, like when we hear people, you know, wanting to become president in America saying that they will prevent refugees from coming into America, then stop fucking making refugees. Like, you are creating the refugees in other countries by getting involved in politics, by starting wars for your own personal gain, and then you create refugees and then you don't want to take them in. But at the end of the day, I truly believe that no person in a position of power cares about the people of their country. And I feel like that's what we saw during the Lebanese Civil War. Like, it's like all these different factions up against each other, and for what? For what, you know? And all these innocent people being killed and suffering for political leaders who care only about themselves. It's just really, really upsetting. So it says the Aleph carried out the Tal al-Zatar massacre, which with Israel's covert support. Years later, in 1982, facing parliamentary attacks by Labour Party leaders, Ariel Sharon upheld his conduct during the notorious Sabra and Shatila massacres in September of that year, in which over 1,000 civilians were killed, by pointing to the Israeli government's support for the Phalangists at the time of the 1976 killings in Tal al-Zatar. Like, yeah, so it's just, you know, you learn about all these massacres that took place during the Lebanese Civil War. It says, here's another quote from this book. Few images are more symbolic of the odds faced by the Palestinians during the Lebanon War than of the Israeli and Syrian officers whose coexistence in Lebanon had been brokered by Henry Kissinger to, quote, break the back, unquote, of the PLO, looking on as Aleph commanders directed a massacre of Palestinian refugee camps. Like, it's the Palestinians who keep on suffering time and time again. So yeah, you know, it's just really disappointing. And it's disappointing because at one point you feel like Carter is going to actually give Palestinians a voice, but then you learn that it ends up not happening in the end because of who is in control in Israel and the pressure he faced in the end. So, you know, there's a lot of talk about Kissinger and what a horrible person he was, which we all know. So yeah, there's like a pledge that the US made secretly to Israel. Then they went against that pledge by dealing with the PLO secretly in order to further their aims, their goals during the Lebanon Civil War, which was, you know, again, had a lot to do with the Cold War and the USSR. But let's skip ahead now to the Camp David Accords. So let's see. So yeah, here it says, so Carter ended the, so it says, the administration ended up adopting the bilateral Camp David process, resulting in the separate Egyptian-Israeli peace treaty of 1979. So, you know, while the PLO was assisting the United States in achieving its goals during the Lebanese Civil War, in the end, they got nothing. So what happened was, this process was specifically designed by Begin to freeze out the PLO, allow unimpeded colonization of the occupied territories occupied in 1967, and put the Palestine issue on hold, which is where it remained for over a decade. So it says, for Sadat, who was the president of Egypt, the treaty restored the Sinai Peninsula to Egypt. For Begin in Israel, the unilateral Egyptian peace strengthened Israel's control of the rest of the occupied territories and permanently removed Egypt from the Arab-Israeli conflict. For the United States, the treaty completed Egypt's shift from the Soviet to the American camp, diffusing the most dangerous aspects of the superpower conflict in the Middle East. So here are all these powers working together in order to get what they want, leaving Palestinians in the dust. Yeah. So yeah, so just very, very frustrating. And then what does it say? Let's see. So it says, yeah, Camp David and the Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty signaled U.S. alignment with the most extreme expression of Israel's negation of Palestinian rights, an alignment that was consolidated by Ronald Reagan's administration. Begin and his successors in the Likud, which is a very far-right, party in Israel, Likud, I believe that's what that's called, the Likud party, Yitzhak Shamir, Ariel Sharon, and then Benjamin Netanyahu were implacably opposed to Palestinian statehood, sovereignty, or control of the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. Ideological heirs of Jabotinsky, they believed that the entirety of Palestine belonged solely to the Jewish people, and that a Palestinian people with national rights did not exist. So, what do we see? We see Palestinians being left out, not allowed to have any say in what happens to them. Yet again, that's exactly what's been happening since the Balfour Declaration. Yeah. Yeah, so it says the conditions imposed by Begin set the ceiling of what the Palestinians were allowed to negotiate for. At different stages, the PLO found itself facing the Israeli, Syrian, and Lebanese armies, as well as Lebanese militias supported covertly by an array of states, including Israel, the United States, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. Yeah. And then finally, the PLO remained the strongest force. Despite this, the PLO remained the strongest force in large parts of Lebanon, those that were not in the hands of foreign armies or their proxies, including West Beirut, Tripoli, Sidon, and Shuf Mountains, and much of the south. It would take one more military campaign to dislodge the PLO, and in 1982, American Secretary of State General Alexander Haig agreed to Ariel Sharon's plan for Israel to finish off the organization and with it Palestinian nationalism. And that's the end of that chapter, and then we're going to go to what that plan was. Just really infuriating. It's like time and time again, this whole book just shows you nothing except that Palestinians have never had a say in what happens to them. Like, they're just treated like they don't exist by the entire world. They're just there to serve as pawns in other people's wars, to serve as pawns in other people's, whatever that they're trying to gain. That's exactly what's happening. That's always what's happened to the Palestinian people. So if you see resistance people, the Palestinian resistance, which is what Hamas is, it's a resistance group, and it's been recognized as a resistance group, though in the West it's recognized as a terrorist group, but even the ICJ said that Palestinians have a right to resist. you know, it's just why do resistance groups rise? Why do they come about? And we've seen why they come about, because they feel like they have no other way. Like they feel like violence is their only way to be heard, because they're not given a voice in any international conventions or, you know, meetings. They're just not given a voice. So if you really wanted to end terrorism, if you believe that what Hamas did on October 7th was terrorism and you want that to end, what is the way to make that end? The way to make that end is by giving Palestinians a voice, by giving them, you know, a say in what happens to them, which has not ever been given to them. If people truly, truly, truly cared about violence ending in Palestine and Israel, they would give Palestinians a voice. Like, how is that so hard for people to comprehend? It's just mind-boggling. So I'm not going to be able to shoot a video next week. So for next time, since we have 2 weeks, just read the entirety of the next chapter, which I know is a lot. But since we have like 2 weeks to do it, hopefully everyone will be able to do that. I hope I'll be able to do that. So that is chapter 4, which is going to be the 4th Declaration of War, 1982. So for next time, please read all of chapter 4, which goes from page 139 to 167. So please read all of chapter 4 for next time, since I will not be shooting a video next weekend, and then we can discuss the 4th Declaration of War next time. So just some commentary on Palestine and the board game industry. So in one of my recent rants, because all I ever do is rant, I know, I talked about how I was angry that there's like this one Muslim content creator who has a large following on Instagram, and it's just getting larger and larger. And, you know, this person gets a shit ton of free review copies from all kinds of publishers. And he recently added a watermelon emoji to his Instagram profile. Yeah, he's never said anything in support of the Palestinians. And like I mentioned before, early on when the genocide began, I messaged him privately on Instagram, and it was not a good interaction because he basically accused me of just being very judgmental and just blah, blah, blah. And yeah, maybe I am judgmental, but I am going to be judgmental of fellow people who say they're Muslim and, in my view, are complete sellouts and don't give a shit about what's happening to their fellow Muslim people. Like, as Muslims, we're supposed to care. Like, I don't care if there's outsiders looking on saying I'm judgmental of a fellow Muslim and that just makes me a bad person. As a Muslim, I know what we're supposed to stand for, and he is not standing for that. And yes, maybe that does make me judgmental, but I was very angry. So I messaged him and I'm like, why are you liking posts by Zionists? Why are you promoting Zionist games? And why aren't you saying anything for Palestine? Like, he did not use his platform one single time to say anything for Palestine. And he's basically like, I keep politics separate and board games separate. Like, I don't want to use my board game account for politics. It's not fucking politics. It's human rights. This is not fucking politics. This is about human rights. And that actually happened. That whole politics, human rights thing. I was at a game day yesterday at a friend's house, an all-day game day at a friend's house, and I was playing a game with someone, 3 other people in fact, and then one of them mentioned how they brought Creature Comforts and would be interested in playing that. And so I mentioned that I have no interest in playing Creature Comforts, and that if they want to play it, that's perfectly fine, but I'm not going to play Creature Comforts because of who the publisher is. And then, you know, one of the people knew exactly what I was talking about because this friend watches my content, but the other 2 people did not know. So they kind of looked a little bit confused. So I explained that Kids Table Board Gaming does not like me and blacklisted me because, you know, well, not blacklisted me. I mean, obviously, I don't care to be blacklisted by Zionists anyway. But I explained that they don't like me because I said Palestinian lives matter. So I just kept on, you know, I tried very much to just keep it very simple for them. I didn't want to go into the whole issue of, you know, everything. And then one of the people who, you know, is a bit older than me, definitely a bit older than me. I don't know how old exactly. And she said, oh, I don't get involved in politics. And so I didn't want to get into a whole discussion. So I just said to her, it's not politics, it's about human rights. So I just left it at that. And then I didn't say anything else, but they didn't end up playing Creature Comforts in the end. And we ended up playing something else. But like, it's not fucking politics, it's human rights. And like, as you will see, Israel and other countries, America, want you to believe it's just politics. They want to dehumanize the Palestinians and want you to feel like it's just politics and not an issue of human rights. But let's suppose it was a bunch of white people in some European country who were being genocided off the face of the planet. Would it be just a political issue then? Like, why is Ukraine and Russia not just politics then? Why is that considered to be a human rights issue? Like, why do people not say simply when Ukrainians are dying, oh, it's just politics? Like, who cares? Like, oh, like 10 Ukrainians were killed today? Like, oh, too bad, it's just politics. Like, it's just so fucking stupid. It's fucking infuriating. So when I see a Muslim creator on Instagram who says to me, oh, I keep politics separate. Like, no, it's not fucking politics, you fucking idiot. It's human rights. And as a Muslim, you should care that your fellow Muslims are being genocided off of the face of the planet. Like, just so infuriating. So when I saw recently that he added a watermelon emoji to his Instagram username, when he's done shit for raising awareness about Palestine, he has done absolute shit for Palestine, has not said a single word for them. I'm like, what is the point of a dumb watermelon emoji? Like, tell me what the fuck is the point of a watermelon emoji when you haven't used your voice once to say anything of consequence, to say anything to educate anyone, to, you know, because you want to keep your free review copies coming in. It's just like all those people, and he is one of them, who participated. He didn't participate in the live stream, but he did a giveaway on his Instagram channel as part of that whole live stream to raise funds for Palestinian children. And all these creators who participated in that live stream, who have watermelon emojis in their Twitter handles or whatever, and still, you know, very proudly promote games from Zionist publishers. Fucking sellouts, fucking hypocrites. Like, do not have a fucking watermelon emoji in your username when it is obviously clear that you do not give a shit about Palestinians. Because if you actually gave a shit about Palestinians, you would have some fucking integrity and you would stop supporting Zionism. You would stop supporting Zionists in the industry by promoting their fucking games. Like, these people are just fucking hypocrites and Zionist shills. And no one seems to care about me. Like, literally no one in this industry seems to care about all these Zionist shills and these fucking hypocrites in this industry but me. It's just really, really infuriating. It's just so infuriating to see people in this industry, like, you know, just basically swooning over Kamala Harris. Like, Kamala Harris is part of this machine. She's no different than Donald Trump, to be quite honest. Like, no different. Like, all these people who believe in all these empty promises she's making, like, I'm sorry, I am gonna go into politics now because it's complete fucking bullshit. Like, and she did not even give a voice to one single Palestinian American at the convention. And here are all these people praising her like she is just the most amazing person and you are a traitor to this country if you do not vote for her. I'm not fucking voting for her. I'm not fucking voting for her. She's a snake, just like all Democrats are, to be honest. So I'm voting for Jill Stein. So Jill Stein is the only person who I trust to actually bring a ceasefire. So like when there was all this talk about the convention about, oh, we will make a ceasefire happen, but then right after that, oh, but Israel has every right to defend itself. It's not fucking defense when it's a fucking genocide. Like when it's been an occupation for over 75 years. That is not self-defense. This is not self-defense. Like, I don't understand, you know, well, I do understand because they're never gonna like actually say the truth, right? They're never ever actually going to say the truth of what is actually happening. So I do understand, but at the same time, like, I don't understand people who actually buy this shit, who actually support Kamala. Like Eric Lang, for example, who has been fawning over Kamala on Twitter and Facebook and just so happy. Like, where are the fucking critical thinking skills? Like, you know, honestly, just switch Palestinians and make it about black people or trans people. If trans people or black people were being genocided in a certain country, do you think people would be voting for Kamala then and saying, oh yeah, but she's promising a ceasefire. She's promising that she's going to work really hard for a ceasefire when she is the fucking vice president right now and we don't see a fucking ceasefire. There has been no movement towards a ceasefire when Hamas and the Palestinians have made every attempt at a ceasefire, but media will have you believe that they're the ones who are thwarting all these efforts. They are not the ones who are thwarting all the efforts for a ceasefire. Time and time and time again, it's been Israel who does not give a fucking shit about the hostages, and they themselves have killed so many of the hostages. It's never been about the fucking hostages. It's always been about over just taking complete control of Gaza since the beginning when they discovered gas off of Gaza back in 2020. Like, this has been in the planning stages for a very long time. Eliminating all of the Palestinians and taking complete control of Gaza has been in the works since gas was discovered off of Gaza. Like, why do people not understand this? Like, how many wars need to happen in this world? How many atrocities need to happen in this world for people to understand that people in power only care about money? People in power only care about making the rich richer? Like, why do people not understand this? And all the people in this industry who, claim to care about human rights, who are dead silent about this genocide, like, where is your sympathy or empathy now? Like, where is it? It's not present. Like, they're all just fucking dead silent because they're all fucking Zionist shills and don't want to upset their Zionist followers. Like, if you truly cared about the Palestinians, you would acknowledge what Zionism is. It's a colonialist ideology. That's what it is. Like, it is 100% colonization. And all these people who say that they care so much about removing themes of colonization from board games because we should not be like, like glorifying colonization in board games, which I don't think that that's what is actually happening when you have a historical board game, but whatever. But like, all these people who care so much about colonization in board games and make a big fucking deal about it are dead silent about a genocide and colonization as it is happening in real time. Like, it makes no fucking sense. And these people are fucking hypocrites. And every single time, I've said something before, and they've been able to paint me as dangerous or whatever, like, they're all just dead silent now because I'm right. Like, what are they going to say to someone who's actually right? Like, they are fucking cowards. They don't want to upset their Zionist friends. They don't want to upset their Zionist publishers. They remain dead silent about a genocide when these people claim to care about human rights and they claim to care about colonization and all of that, which is 100% untrue. It's not true. Like, these people are showing you who they are. Like, people say all the time, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. So when Eric Lang, Suzanne Sheldon, Roddy Smith, and all of their minions show you who they are, fucking believe them. Like, they don't care. They don't care. So fucking believe them. Like, they're showing you what they are right now by not saying a single word. It's just, that's just the way it is. So that's this industry for you. So yeah, it just really pisses me off when I see people with watermelon emojis in their usernames who truly actually do not support the Palestinians. Like, the Palestinians don't give a shit about your watermelon when you support Zionism, when you support Zionists, and when you do not stand up for what is really right and true. So yeah, so fuck you and your watermelon emojis. So yeah, so that is my rant of the week. So let's move on. So this week's question of the week is inspired by Lords of Heaven. So I want to know, are you comfortable with playing games with themes about war or colonization that took place in history? Why or why not? I would really like to know, because this is a very touchy topic in the board gaming space, and as I just recently discussed in my Palestine section, there are a lot of people in this industry who want to do away with games that have to do with colonization, that have to do with the slave trade that existed. But all of these things are a part of history. Now, would I be against a game that is about something that is actually happening right now? Absolutely. Like, I would believe that that would be in very, very poor taste. But a game about the Crusades, which is from a very, very, very long time ago, am I going to take offense to it? As a Muslim person, no, like, I don't care. Like, that is from a long, long time ago. I'm not going to care about a game about the Crusades when we should be caring about things that are happening right now. I'm not going to misplace my energy in making a big fucking deal about games which are about the Crusades when people could be caring and spending that energy on caring about issues that are taking place right now. So yes, I did play a game about the Crusades and I had fun playing it. Like, I played as a Muslim faction. One of my friends played as a Muslim faction, and I was actually joking with him throughout the game. Like, when the Crusaders and the Byzantines were always ganging up on me and forming alliances and going to battle with me, and my fellow Muslim empire was nowhere to be found, I would joke with him and I'd be like, hey, why aren't you helping out your fellow Muslims? Like, what's going on here? Why are you just leaving me in the lurch time and time again? And he would joke back and he'd say, oh, well, you know, we have differences. We don't see eye to eye. So why would I help you, a fellow Muslim? Like you know, you're just an infidel in my eyes. And actually, yeah, that is actually true. So actually, as a Shia Muslim, I know all too well how other Muslims view me as an infidel. Like how there are extremist Wahhabi Muslims and Muslims who have been influenced by Wahhabis in this world who think that I am an infidel because I am a Shia Muslim. And I could go on at length about what it means to be a Shia Muslim because I've studied my faith in depth. There was a time in my life where I actually wanted to go to Iran and study at a religious school in Iran to get even more in depth into my religion. But I have read countless books about my religion, and I could tell you all the differences between Shiism and Sunniism and how I think Wahhabis are just full of complete shit. But I'm not going to get into that right now. But despite that, I had fun playing this game and just joking with my friend about how he's just leaving me in the lurch because he's not coming and helping his fellow Muslims and the Christians are just taking over. Like, I had no problem with that. Like, I was having fun joking about it because it happened a long fucking time ago. Would I enjoy playing a game about a genocide in Gaza? Absolutely not, because that is recent history. So I guess it also depends on how recent something is. Would people have fun playing a game about Russia attacking Ukraine? Probably not, because that is still ongoing. But maybe like 200 years from now, if someone made a game about that, and would they enjoy playing a game about that? Like, could they make jokes while playing a game about that? I don't know, but I feel like the Crusades are so far removed that me just joking around about how the fellow Muslims are just leaving me to be slaughtered, like, I don't think that that's a joke that's in poor taste. Like, the Crusades were so long ago. So I think it's, you know, being mindful of when something happened and being mindful of who your audience is when you're playing, but also a game needs to be designed in such a way that it is not in poor taste. And I don't think Lords of Heaven is designed in poor taste. It's a very interesting area control game, and I just really, really enjoyed playing it. So yeah, so let me know, you know, just give me your thoughts on this topic. Like, you know I discussed, you know, at length about various things that would influence my decision about whether or not I would play a game like that. So I do think that there are various factors to take into consideration about whether you would want to play a game that has a historical theme involving colonizations, war, slavery, etc. And some things could be done in poor taste, but some things may not be done in poor taste. And some things may have just been created for pure historical value. Like, you know, there are going to be board games that are about things that happen in history which are unpleasant, but they are of historical value. Like, they can teach people about the history, which I think is a good thing. So let me know your thoughts on that. And until next time, and as a reminder, there will be no new video next week. So the next video will be 2 weeks from now, if I'm doing my math right. So yeah, so until next time, bye.